Hello and welcome back to the Hive. The Hive community is made up of dynamic educators like yourself. I am so excited to get today started. Thank you everyone for journeying along with us to help build positive and impactful change in our classrooms as well as our communities. I'm your host, Michael Matera. I'm a teacher, I'm an author, and I get the fortunate luck of also being the host of the Hive Summit. And today we have two wonderful presenters with us. So let's get down to business today. Today we have with us two early childhood education veterans with over 18 years of experience with teaching littles. Early childhood education forms the bedrock of our school system. These important years lay a foundation for students to confidently build upon for years to come. Both Jessica and Christine are advocates for the use of innovating play. They are the moderators of both #InnovatingPlay and Gaffs for Littles. And additionally, they work to preserve, protect, and transform early childhood experiences beyond the classroom. Let's wait no longer and get down to business chatting with these two presenters. Welcome, Christine and Jessica.
Thank you.
Hi.
You bet. I'm excited to have you guys in the Hive. Thanks for being here. I want to start with, you guys have a really sort of unique story. I mean, we're going to have some other dual presenters like this, but yours, you got a unique story. So let's start there.
Okay, so a little bit of background for those who aren't too familiar with us. Jessica and I teach kindergarten, but we teach on opposite sides of the country. I'm based in California and Jessica is based in New Jersey. And what's special about our collaboration is that our students connect on a daily, year-long basis through some rituals that we facilitate. So we could talk more about those rituals that we have just to kind of give a picture, just because when we say daily, year-long connection, I know that it's hard to wrap your head around a visual as to what that looks like. So one of our rituals that we have is a wish you well ritual, which we have adopted from conscious discipline. And the idea with the wish you well is when someone is absent from school, they're recognized. So what that visually looks like is a heart that is in a Google Drawing space. And on both sides of the heart, we have access to, the kids can see the names of the kids in New Jersey and the names of the kids in California. And when somebody is absent either class, the name is brought to the middle of the heart so that each class can see who's absent. And then a little song is sang, a little wish you well song to wish well those friends who are not at school that day. So trying to think a little bit more on that. Well,
I mean, that's awesome. Because we're hitting on those traditional themes of building one, just sort of regularity, right? So you're doing this every day. This is kind of your attendance. But I also love just the thought of how welcoming and community based that is, even for an individual classroom, let alone you figured out how to connect these two, and actually have people care. And if you're doing this daily, people kids in New Jersey are actually feeling Susie's not here in California.
Yes. And I think, Michael and Christine, backing up even more than that, when we decided to do the Wish You Well Heart, it was because when Christine and I connected, we connected as kind of educators with a like mindset and with a comfort with technology. And so one of our questions in the beginning was, how can we take what we know and bring our classes together? What would happen if kids had a teacher in New Jersey and a teacher in California that they got to experience every day? It wouldn't cost anything. We could take the best of both worlds and bring them together. So in order to do that, we had to create this community. We had to redefine what was normal for our kids. So Christine actually had the Wish You Well Heart going in her classroom, like a more traditional Wish You Well Heart. And it was when we looked at both of our schedules and both of our rituals and routines that we started to break it down and say, okay, like, I like this thing that you do. How could we use that to come together now? And that's how the new version of the Wish You Well Heart was born.
So definitely like updating some of your practices and feeling
Yes.
what works in this shared model. That's fantastic.
One of the things that we'd really like for teachers of young children to take away, especially in a time now where we're feeling like early childhood is kind of being robbed from us. Like, we want to be in circle time on the floor with our kids, and we know that's not happening in the fall. And so teachers are starting to panic with that. So what we're saying is, before you start to panic, start to look at what you value as an educator. What do you want to preserve for your children? And instead of feeling like it's being taken away from you, how can you redefine it? So Christine and I had a chance to start to redefine these norms before it sort of became a mandatory thing. So when we come to teachers now, we're coming to them with that perspective. Like, look, we've already considered what would happen if we opened up the walls of the classroom? How would it feel for kids? How can we redefine their normal? And now teachers are being pushed into that. You know what I mean? We just happen to get there first. So we're here to offer words of comfort and say, you know, no, it's not going to be exactly what it was. But guess what? Some things can be even better. Some things we can redefine because they match the world that kids live in now. And that's what early childhood spaces are meant to do. They're meant to be a mirror of this big world and a safe place to play within them. So the Wish You Well Heart is just a new way to play with something that we know kids need, that sense of place and value and accountability in the classroom to start the day.
What great advice for all educators here at the Hive, because really what you're sort of reminding us all is what happened at the end of last year. We were all in sort of triage mode. You guys probably more smoothly transitioned into that, but like for the rest of us, we were in triage mode. But what you shared is in your story of like going through the things you guys did before you guys connected, and you guys then thoughtfully picked what worked and how that would look with the two of your classrooms. And then you've had great success. You obviously continue to do this sort of partnership. And so for us, as we as educators look to the next year, it's not the same as it was at the end of last year. Last year, it was triage mode. Now we have time. We can thoughtfully think through what are the core elements of our class we want to honor and think through how to honor those.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Exactly. And I think that makes a big difference for young children, especially. I know I had shared one story with the Wish You Well Heart where I had a little girl who went kind of into panic mode when the whole thing happened and she felt disconnected. And what I turned to first was the idea of the Wish You Well Heart. And I said to her, you remember that heart? Remember how all of our names were on that? And we knew that our California friends would be learning that day just like we would, even though we couldn't see them. And she had something to hold on to there. She realized like, oh yeah, I couldn't see them, but I know we were still all doing those special things together. And there was comfort in that. So it's just redefining how can we establish that comfort from the child's perspective.
I think too is like, I can only speak from a middle schooler perspective or middle school teacher perspective. And I think there's sort of pillars of comfort, right? If you have these sort of steady things that happen, that's important. And I like what you're saying, like because they had that ritual and you can kind of like tap into that ritual, there all of a sudden was something familiar about this unfamiliar situation they're in, that they saw some comfort because of that pillar of stability.
Yes.
I like it. So you guys have this wishing well. I also don't want to like skip over this a little. I do want to just backtrack a bit on your guys' like partnership here. You guys had both been practicing teachers for quite some time. You both had established classrooms, and then you sort of met each other and it just sort of clicked. How quick did it go from like meeting each other to like, let's do this?
I'd say fairly quickly. Jessica and I connected on Twitter, and we had been connected for some time. There was a year where I was moderating the Gap for Littles chat, and I was hosting it on Flipgrid. So teachers were able to participate in video format, and that is where I could hear more of Jessica's ideas articulated in a video. You have more opportunity to share more in a video than you do in, like, well, at the time, what was 180 characters on Twitter. So I really latched onto her ideas, really liked what she was doing, and kind of just like kept a close eye on what she was doing in her classroom as we started school that following summer. And it just took some initial invitations of like just putting it out there to the world, but we both jumped in on it. So for example, my kids, a common kindergarten thing is like sharing, like you share your object or you play a guessing game to guess like what the object is, and that ties in with like alphabet knowledge and like literacy. And so that year I had decided to put it on Flipgrid, and I put the link out there and said anyone whose kids want to join in on our letter sharing Flipgrid, go ahead and jump in. And Jessica had her kids like immediately jump on the next day. And so it was instances like that, because Jessica had also put things out there also that I had my kids jump on. And so it started out with, on occasion, we were connecting. And so then we started to think how cool it would be to connect every day, and what are some things that we're already doing so that we can connect on those things. And that is how actually our weather Flipgrid, our weather reporting piece came together. Like that whole ritual is something that Jessica and I both had in our classrooms, checking the weather, graphing the weather, and it's a valuable piece, period. And it covers standards, which is why we do it. However, like just doing it in our classes alone, I live in California where it's pretty much sunny every day. So it's no surprise tomorrow when it's also sunny, and next week and next month. But then Jessica has these things called like seasonal changes that we don't necessarily see in my region of California. So with our Flipgrid weather reporting, how that works is both of our kids report what the weather is for that day. So a child from both of our classes will say, like, you know, it is sunny and 80 degrees in California. What's the weather in New Jersey? And so they have that video on Flipgrid, and Jessica's kids will do the same thing. You know, it's cold and foggy.
You can't even come up with it.
I know, 30 degrees. What's the weather, you know, in California? And we got to see those videos during the time which we facilitated those rituals. So I know that a piece that sometimes gets confusing is, well, how do you guys connect when you guys are on different time zones? And like, we're not connecting live time, but our collaboration and resources are there for us to access during our appropriate times of the day. So oftentimes when I was accessing like our weather Flipgrid, Jessica's kids were like towards the end of their day, you know, and or like the wish-you-well heart that we mentioned earlier. Jessica's kids are in the wish-you-well heart while my kids are still asleep at home, you know, and then when my kids finally get to school, her kids are like going to lunch, you know. So it was something that I like to share is that our rituals are not extra pieces. They were pieces that we already had going in our classrooms. And so that first year that we were collaborating, you asked how fast things went. It was through that weather Flipgrid where other projects emerged and opportunities, just because we got to see what was happening in each other's environments. Look what's happening in the classroom. Like, look at that, what's on their classroom wall. What is that? We can ask a question on Flipgrid, and then they're able to respond to that. Or like, well, look at California has garden life happening in February, like, you know, and like, let's show them what ours looks like over here in New Jersey. Like, it's dead in
so
February.
You've convinced like a whole crop of Californian students never to leave California, and you've convinced a bunch of New Jersey students to start packing their bags.
Well, it's a little different too. I will just say that sometimes I will point out to the kids, look at all the trees. They have tons of trees, guys. Do you guys see the green over there? Where is that over here?
Good call.
Yeah,
it's true. And it's also, I think it helped the kids not only to see what was different, but what was the same, and also what was special about their own spaces, things that they might have overlooked in just, going through their normal daily life, they would stop and say to me, "Oh, Mrs. Toomey, look, like this is happening here. This is probably not happening in California." Whereas they would have
nice
just
compare and
walked by that
contrast.
tree before. Yes. So what we're doing in that weather report is we're collecting authentic data with kids. We're making weather observations. We're collecting information about plant life and animal life, because like we live in a rural space and they live in a city space. We're collecting information that becomes a part of our instruction in the most authentic way, and our questions and our learning becomes so much richer because it's not coming from just this book or just this video from an outside source. It's coming from other kids just like me in this like real time back and forth that we have together, and that is very powerful.
That's so
talk
awesome.
about
I mean,
like
right?
next generation science standards when we're looking for authentic ways for kids to be problem solvers and thinkers. Like this is it. We don't need to reach outside too far when we connect with another class in a different space, because there is authentic data waiting to be discovered.
And it makes it real for them. I mean, like that's
It
so
does.
cool. Like when it's like you could just randomly say like, look, well, let's pick the weather somewhere else. But like to actually have kids they know and start to care about and develop like this relationship with. Now it like is meaningful that this group from one side of the nation to the other side of the nation is sort of paying attention to that side of the nation. And that's sort of so cool. Like even my sixth graders don't always think on that level. So to have that be part of their experience is amazing.
Yeah, and to have that foundation for thinking about the world, for thinking outside of yourself and understanding that other people are having different experiences, like laying that foundation alone is so critical.
As a world history teacher, I mean, thank you. Thank you.
We're getting them ready for you.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So this weather reporting ritual, the thing I want to sort of say about that is, one, my daughter absolutely loved doing the weather, and if she got to actually think she was on like Flipgrid and that it's not just for her class, that it's actually like for a wider audience, that brings in that authentic piece that we know as educators is huge. So her mind would have just been blown. And then two, I like what you said, that you're helping us realize that not all of this is happening. You're not like turning the camera on and all day you're with each other.
Right.
It is this asynchronous, but that it's a daily commitment to that asynchronous. That's huge.
Yeah. Oh, I love those words for it. That daily commitment to asynchronous learning. Yes. Yes. Like, please don't just think you need to substitute like one classroom into another classroom by live streaming. There are so many options for meaningful use of technology. And at the heart of it really is the connection and the relationships that we're establishing between children and classes. The tools, the tech is our tool. Like it's in the background. And yes, it plays a role, and yes, we need it, but it is not what's at the forefront. When the kids look at their classroom experience, they're not going to talk about Flipgrid or Seesaw or whatever else we use, although those are the tools that we use. They're going to talk about their friends in California, and they're going to talk about when so-and-so, like the kids actually took their weather reports on vacation, and families recorded on, we have weather reports from Russia, from Florida, from China, from New York, from Jamaica, because, and that was not Christine and I saying like, oh, if you're going on vacation, make sure you do a weather report. That was them saying, Mom and Dad, guess what? We're in this place. We can send a weather report. And they did. It was totally from the kids that happened. And once one kid did it, then guess what? Next one that went on vacation, like they were sending a weather report too. So kids are becoming the creators of their learning experiences.
Well, again,
because
you've invited them to realize like how small the world is, but at the same time how large the world is, right? Like it's this duality of like, well, I'm going to Russia, no one's done a weather report from Russia, or even like I'm just going to upstate New York or whatever, but no one's done one from there. So like, let me share, right? That's so powerful. Like, I love it. Thank you.
And the idea that like our kids know I have a voice and I have a place to put that voice.
That's fantastic. All right, so we have the Wish You Well, which I think I want to sort of figure out a way to do that in my middle school class. We have an advisory program.
That'd be so
and I
great.
think it would be, I mean, it doesn't sound like that complicated to sort of let people know, like, we're sad you're not here. I actually really dig this idea.
And you know what else it is? It's also the idea that the idea behind the wish you well is you're acknowledging that people are part of a community, whether you're in the same space or not. And I say to the kids, when we put our hands over our heart, your thoughts are so powerful. What you think is so powerful. So when you think of our friends that are not here, and we're going to send well wishes to the friends around us, if there's anyone else that you need to send well wishes to, you absolutely may do that. The world needs well wishes. And for every Google Meet that we held in remote learning, we sang the Wish You Well song, and we sent our love to the world. And that's how we closed our meeting. Kids need to know that their thoughts are powerful.
That's huge. I mean, that's huge. I'm speechless. Like, that's a really powerful statement, and what a way that you're shaping these kids, you know, and who they become. Like we said in the intro, like you are laying a foundation for them to sort of confidently build upon the rest of their lives. And like, these are some just amazing lessons. Amazing. That don't necessarily fall on some sort of scope and sequence, that don't necessarily fall on some sort of standards, but like, you're approaching them in a relational way that's going to last them a lifetime.
Yeah, well, and something really quick just to point out that there are a ton of like little nuances of things that go into these rituals, that like there's so many like learning experiences that happen where from like, you know, like, oh, I see that Sarah is absent. We're looking over here on our California name, so I can move Sarah into which name is hers. Which name starts with an S, you know, so how do I know which name is Sarah? So like there's like little learning moments like that, but also on another perspective, just like a whole digital citizenship piece, how to represent yourself online, like with our weather reporting, or like even we've had conversations with our kids about like, we wouldn't go touch the New Jersey side of the Wish You Well Heart. They forgot to change the date today, you know, but is it our place to go change it? No, that's their side. We have to respect their space. So just like little things that are planted with the kiddos early on. Like I said, totally a lot of little nuances. Just
but those are the nuances, like, I hope as we're here at the Hive Summit and it is a K through whatever, I mean, it goes all the way up to university, like community. This is one of those things I constantly sort of say that we as educators can look to and learn from your neck of the woods, and that being like that embedded sort of life teaching, that embedded curriculum is so much more powerful than like today's lesson is going to be on like S. That's important, but like, oof, you know, like it's better to have that embedded, you know,
it's all about connections.
That's right. And, you know, who's Sarah? And, you know, you just took a fraction of a second to hold that S and get them to sort of connect to that lesson you said 2 weeks ago when it was the lesson about the S.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, like that's just something that I think we need to remember, is sort of that, just building it into what you do. Just letting it.
Oh, can I say one more little thing on that? Just thinking about building it into what you do. I think like when people see what Christine and my kids are doing, sometimes they're surprised with the level of tech that the kids can engage in. And one of the things we want teachers to know is it's not because we've had individual lessons on how to do this in Google Slides. It's because we're using these tools. So even in the Wish You Well Heart, the kids know, and we think aloud about how you click on the box and you drag it over and you look for the little symbol that's going to help you. It's because all of those little digital lessons are built into meaningful rituals that when the kids go to create something on their own, or they're working on the Chromebooks on their own, they know that space because we've created authentic digital lessons for them in how to manipulate the tools. And that's a big one too.
That's huge. And then that idea of necessity is the mother of all invention. Like, you've given them a space to be like, hey, we need to move some names. How are we going to do that? And then all of a sudden, like, hey, do you notice that the like mouse changes when you grab? Hey, like, let's try grabbing that. And this is again this thing that I think teachers need to also embrace. You really can't break technology like this. So like, just play around with it, click some things, drag some things, make some fake assignments. You too don't have to wait for the district PD on Google Slides or Google Docs.
Oh, absolutely. And learn with the kids, like, and say, like, there are plenty of times that I mess up and the kids and I figure it out together. And sometimes, guess what? They think of the solution, like, oh, Mrs. Toomey, maybe you need a hard reboot, or maybe you need to refresh, or like these these are the kindergarten solutions just because I think aloud with them. So when we just honor the process and we don't make it so that teachers have to be perfect, then kids and teachers are learning together.
I love it. That's awesome. So, all right. I mean, you've shared two excellent ones. You did the wish you well. You did the sort of the weather ritual. I mean, do you have like another one that we can kind of sort of share out here to give more context?
Yes. So another ritual that we have, this one was actually Jessica's before we brought it together, is called the feelings check-in. So to give a visual as to what that looks like. So it's hosted in Google Slides, and there's a heart, and inside the heart are like little illustrations of different feelings. So the angry face has like a little character that has like, the eyebrows that are like scrunched and everything. And there are like, it goes beyond happy, sad, angry. There are like things like content and worried and excited. Like I want to say there's at least 14 feelings in that heart. And so the kids discover more to them. So how it's facilitated in the classroom. Jessica, do you want to share how you facilitate it? And then I can chime in on like a visual piece if I feel like it's needed.
Sure. So the idea with the feelings check-in, and when I did it in the classroom, there was not the Google Slides piece. It was more just an interaction, like in a community gathering time. It was when we came together that we discovered this other way of facilitating it. But the idea is when you're participating in the feelings check-in, you're looking at the people around you and reading their expression and their body language to try and determine how you think they are feeling. And then I asked the kids, like, did anyone notice how someone else is feeling today? So they would raise their hand. But when they're raising their hand, it's not a me check-in. It's not, I'm going to say how I'm feeling. It's, I'm going to say how I think somebody else might be feeling. So I'm asking them to step outside of themselves. So like prior to any learning, or any academics, I should say, I want children to feel acknowledged, and I want them to know that before you do anything, you check in with the other person. So they might say like, oh, I think Michael is feeling, tired today because, because he was yawning and because his shoulders are a little slumped over and his head is down. And then, so they would give reasons for exactly why they think that child might be feeling that way. And then they would say, like, Michael, are you feeling tired today? And you might say, yes, I am feeling tired today because whatever. Or you might say, no, I'm not really feeling tired today. I'm feeling this. And you would share with us, what you were feeling instead. Because sometimes we can misread people's body cues. Sometimes, you might not have realized that you were, sitting down like that. And then you check in with your own body language. But anyway, the idea is to check in with someone else. So when we created this feelings heart, we're giving kids richer language and vocabulary to identify feelings. So we start with the check-in on the rug with the kids in the classroom, and then somebody, which is like super popular job coming, someone gets to check in on the feelings heart. So they would come up to where the heart is displayed, for us, it's on a smartboard. And I would say to them, would you like to share with us how you are feeling, or would you like to take care of a friend today? Because sometimes during that prior feelings check-in, they might have noticed, or we might have learned that so-and-so was sad. So often they'll get up there and they'll say, you know what, I really want to take care of Michael today because I know he's feeling tired, and it's hard to learn when you're tired. So that person would come up and they would click on the tired guy, which sends you to, Christine, you can tell us where it's going to send you.
Right. So each face on the heart is hyperlinked to its own slide. So tired, when you click on tired, it goes to the tired slide. And on the tired slide is, again, the face with the visual of what tired looks like. And it has on there, like we have like these little like trains like in the corner where it's like one of like, for this one, it would be like the train is looking kind of trying. Whoa. Like your train's is going to be moving slowly if you have this tired feeling, versus like, if you're feeling like, excited, your train might be like, blah, because you're excited, and it's sometimes hard to contain that energy and it might go off the track. But anyway, back to the tired slide. So it has like the slow train, I guess you could say. And then it has a couple of also linked Go Noodle videos, which explore that feeling of tired. When you feel tired, what can you do? And so then, Jessica, you might want to pick it up from here. Then the kiddo. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say that what we would say is tired is really not a feeling that's going to work for learners today, because you can't do your best learning when you're tired. So the options on there are all more energizing videos to kind of get the kids, up and moving. So we would move around the room. That child gets to click on which way we're going to address our tired today. And then we all engage in that movement activity and then come back to the rug. So it's a way of identifying feelings and a way of like empowering kids. Like, if this is what you're feeling, do we want to embrace this feeling and go with, this movement activity? Or do we need to move past that in some way? Sometimes if they choose the excited one, there's different ones. Sometimes we need to get our excited out, and sometimes we need a calming video to go with that one, so they know like there are different ways to address feelings. But the idea is to give them really specific strategies rather than just saying, I'm feeling this way, okay, let's move on. It gives them something like, okay, we need to work on this together. And what I love is when they choose a video to meet somebody else's needs, often you can see the kids kind of checking in with that kid who is feeling sad or tired or whatever. And I love when we come back to the rug and they say, you know what, Mrs. Toomey, I noticed that Michael looks like he's feeling better now. It looks like he's got more energy now. And then I say, look at how powerful our choices are. Look how we take care of each other. Now we are ready to learn.
That's fantastic. I love, like you said, there's so much, it goes back to our previous conversation. There's so much built into that activity that's just inherent, right? You're one, teaching them just their own feelings, right? And checking in with themselves and sort of searching inside, like what attitude do I have today? What is my disposition today? And then two, like that empathy piece that like, as much as I kind of want to go up to the board and talk about me,
right,
really seems like I need to check in about this other person. And then you take it an extra step further, which is amazing, is actually actionable things you can do about that. Because so many times we talk about like feelings in the middle school and it's just to say it, right? And then we kind of move on, and then it's like, well, and now we're done with that activity, and now we're doing this other thing. So to like have inside that activity, what are we going to do about it? That's awesome.
Yeah.
And it doesn't end there. We wrap up our experience with
what?
our
My mind was already blown.
I know.
Now it's gonna explode. Now, like we end on our moment of gratitude. So afterwards, we have there's a Go Noodle has a great Be Grateful video. So we took the thumbnail image of that video, and it's on the tired slide. So we click on that and it takes us to our last slide that has some words that the kids come around to understanding. Something like, like feelings come and feelings go, but being grateful is what we know. So no matter how you're feeling, you can turn to gratitude to ground you. And so in that moment, you can watch the Be Grateful video on Go Noodle, but that's not necessarily an everyday thing to be watching that video all the time. It's on an occasional watch, but we will have a share out. What are you grateful for today? And it's not something that just has to be practiced at Thanksgiving time. Every day you can find gratitude, and it helps the kids to see oh yeah, they're like, we did get to be at school today, or I'm grateful for my friends, or I'm grateful that this weekend I get to do this, just to hold on to that so early on. And that help, that I know for myself, that's like a coping mechanism too. You can be down in the slumps, but then it's like, well, at least I have this. And I know that's not something that necessarily comes naturally. So to develop that practice early on is huge for the kiddos.
Well, I mean, the thing about training somebody to be more grateful, it is something that is trainable, right? Because it's just the power of observation in your own life, right? So it's this ability to seek, out what's working, right? And I this past year I read about the spotlight effect on your mind, that your mind, all things are happening at once. Like my mind is processing negative things around me right now, and my mind is processing positive, but your conscious is like a flashlight. So like I get to choose where to point that flashlight, and you can train yourself to be like, I'm just going to point it over here and notice that it's a sunny day here in Wisconsin and it's actually like 75. Take that, Christina. It's nice. Zero humidity. It's gorgeous here. There's my weather report, right? But I can flash on that as opposed to like, I also have to like wash my car today and I got to do this and I got to do that. Like those are going to happen. But right now I'm going to put the flashlight on the fact that it's a gorgeous day.
Yeah. That's exactly what we do with the kids in those rituals. And I think what we can come back to now is, even if you think about the wish you well and the feelings check-in and the weather reporting, those are all things that we're going to continue to do moving forward, because guess what? They work in the classroom, they work for remote learning, they'll work in a hybrid. So we've created things. I know one of the fears is that teachers, I'm sorry about the clock, that teachers will feel like they have to do 3 different jobs. So one way we can empower teachers is to help them create meaningful rituals that will translate beautifully in any learning setting.
I think you guys have given us like 3 awesome ones. Now I got to ask you guys a little tough question though. And that is, I love how these go, and I love how you've sort of pointed out how you use them in sort of the normal situation, which was blended sort of learning, or at least these aspects were blended. What happened for you guys last year when everything was online or not, or asynchronous, synchronous? I mean, you guys are 2 different schools, so maybe things were handled differently.
Right. So I like immediately we brought those pieces that we knew were easily transferable, which was just about most of the things that we were doing, and provided it in a space for the kids. So for example, the feelings check-in, I brought that onto Flipgrid right away, just because I still wanted the kids to be able to see each other daily, and to be able to respond to each other if they wanted to. So they knew how to use the feelings check-in heart, and so that was there. But on the Flipgrid, they were able to talk about, like, they got to share how they were feeling and what they were grateful for. So I think that was especially critical for our kids, because in a time when everything in the world around you is changing, to be able to, again, with that gratitude piece, to like, okay, like I don't get to go to school today. Some of the things I used to be grateful for, I don't necessarily have, but I still get to stay safe at home with my family. I get to play with my toys. And so they would share those things out with each other, and sometimes respond to each other, especially like if the kiddo is saying like, like I'm feeling sad today. Kiddos would jump on that video and be like, I'm sending you an air hug, I'm wishing you well, because like just so that they wouldn't, so because they can relate. They didn't want that kiddo to feel alone. So that was like one of the things that we brought to our space. Also too, as far as like the wish you well, Jessica can definitely speak more on that. She focused on that at like the end of your Google Meets, right?
I didn't do the wish you. I had to let go of the wish you well at the end of last year. It will be coming back this year.
Well,
so Michael, was your question about how we moved those into our separate spaces, or what happened to our collaboration between our 2 classrooms?
Either. I mean, like, I just think we all know we're headed into a different year. And so
I think teachers will probably be wondering, so how are you going to do that this year?
Exactly. Like, I think people watching this video and says like, I'm sold. I'm going to find a partner teacher somewhere. But
I think, I think one of the exciting things is that we get to continue to redefine. And I think one of the things that Christine and I kind of pride ourselves in is that we pretty much like try it and share it right away. Like we don't keep it to ourselves. Like we built a new version of the Wish You Well Heart, which has the hybrid model and the remote learning model and the collaborative model, and like shared that out, because we know like teachers want into our heads. It's helpful to be in other teachers' heads. And I think we're really open to continuing to work together and taking the pieces that we need to each of our classes, and to finding ways to continue to be connected. Like the weather reporting will still be a thing, even though it's remote learning on your side and a hybrid on my side. And I think one of the exciting things is just being open to seeing how that's going to unfold. Amazing projects came from just the weather reporting alone, and that looks different every year. This is going to be our 4th year, and it's rare that we repeat a project the same way, because circumstances are different, and this year, like, they're extra different, but that just means new possibilities. So limitless learning, and that is our thing. And I think we will hold to that and believe in that and share every piece that we can to continue to inspire.
I solid answer. As you guys move online, the other thing that I'm curious is, can you speak to the teacher that is sort of feeling sad about letting go of certain things? You talked about how you had to let that go at the end of the year. I'm sure the two of you know, like all teachers, all grade levels, we have these exciting projects, these exciting moments, our school calls them rallying points, something that kids know, like, oh, when I get into Mr. Matera's class in January, he always does that Greek Olympics thing. I can't wait to be on Athens team. And kids know it, like, coming up, because I make announcements, right? And same thing, you guys know the wonderful projects you do, the wonderful traditions you have when school is in normal session. What do you do to put the spotlight back on the actionable steps and the things that you are empowered to do next year?
Do you want to start, Jessica? Do you want me to? Yeah.
Sure. I think one of the best things that we can do is to stop and think about what those things are. Like, identify the things that speak to your teacher heart, that bring you joy, that you can bring your most passionate teaching to, and think of them through a new lens now. Like, okay, maybe I love circle time with my kids, and I love being on the rug, and I love reading a story to them, and I know I won't be able to do exactly that. But what's a new version of that I can create that's going to hold true to those values and capture that feeling? And I think when you just go into it with an open heart that way, and you seek out resources that are going to speak to those goals, and don't get distracted by the shiny new tool. Like, there are so many tools and companies that are pulling at teachers right now because, everybody wants everybody's business and everybody's attention, and everybody wants to have the solution. But I think if you just really can stay true to what your goal is, what you value, what brings you joy, then you can bring that to your kids and to your families. And I think it also means really looking specifically at your population and checking in with every family and figuring out, what do they need right now? How can you nurture them? Because online learning with little ones requires their caregivers to be a part of that. So instead of seeing that as an obstacle, how can we embrace that? Like, how can we build family bonds? How can we nurture relationships? One of the greatest gifts of remote learning was that my families learned their children as learners. They got to know who their kids are, not just as a kid at home, but who they are as a learner. And that's very powerful. So I think if we can go into it with a willingness to embrace our new connection with families, to empower families as part of that process, we can really redefine things in a beautiful way. And instead of staying stuck in, but I really want this back, creating new ways of doing things and still not getting attached to those things, because guess what? That's probably going to evolve too. I think if you're going to attach to anything, attach to possibilities, attach to the idea that you will always be able to redefine something that is good and true. Do we ever want to take away hands-on learning for kids? No, we absolutely do not. We want to give them new ways to experience what we know is good for them. And I think if we take our teacher hearts into that, we can absolutely meet that challenge. And I will stand by that.
Well said. Christine?
Well, I mean, Jessica totally nailed it. And just like the part that I just want to like highlight the most is like, absolutely be open to possibilities, and don't feel like just because things we're learning remotely, it doesn't mean that all the learning needs to take place on technology. Like, kids can still do hands-on learning things at home. And, I mean, of course, with our littles, their grown-ups are helping them at home, taking a picture and submitting work that way, posting to their journal on Seesaw, or a grown-up is like, recording a video as the kiddo is like reading something, or as they're talking through something, and how they're articulating, they're sharing that. Like, that's still a way that we can, as teachers, can monitor their progress and everything. It doesn't mean that our kids have to be on the computer 6 hours a day to just like submit their work, we get to still hold on to pieces that we really value. And we talked about those rituals. Those rituals, they mean so much to us. And while we redefined them when we first came together, we're redefining them now again as we're in different learning spaces. And so even like we modified it immediately as we went into remote learning back in March. I talked about the feelings check-in, and like Jessica, I know you didn't physically have the heart in your Google Meet, but you ended each meet with the wish you well. That's you brought that whole like that wasn't lost. That's just how it looked. It looked differently during that time. And this year we as we're I think a challenge and thinking that we're approaching too is that our families now don't know how we work, where our families in March had been working with us all year, and they're like, sharing things on Seesaw, that's fine because that's how we were doing things. So now we're thinking about how we are going to bring that to families. So just being open to possibilities, understanding that it's going to look different, but there's magic to be discovered in new ways.
For sure.
That's fantastic. Before we sort of wrap up this excellent session, I do want you guys to sort of share out some exciting news for the people here in the Hive Summit.
Yes. So we have written a book. It is in its final stages, and it is going to be coming out sometime this fall. So our book is called Innovating Play, Redefining Learning Through Meaningful Tech Integration. So that is something to definitely look forward to. We talk more about those rituals that we were talking about in this session. We talk about how we innovate play through the curriculum, through literacy, math, science. We talk about innovating play unchained through our connected playtime and our community playtime. And of course, we have a ton of resources that we share in that book. Also, we will be sharing a lot of the rituals that we talked about today. We're sharing those resources on our speaker page as well.
Nice. Thank you for that. So everybody definitely check out the speaker page and stay connected. Like I say with all the speakers, definitely connect and follow these two speakers on, Twitter, join their mailing list so that you guys get kind of that inside track of when these things happen. Their book is going to be fantastic because I got to tell you, man, if you weren't blown away by the session, I'm sure you're going to get blown away by the well thought out, well organized book that they put together. And I couldn't thank you guys enough. I mean, I really have enjoyed this session, and really what you speak to is all of us. I mean, really so many of these things are powerful takeaways for everyone, to be honest. And thank you for your work too. I mean, I think the highest compliment a teacher can give to another teacher is it would be a pleasure to have my daughter in either of your classes.
Oh, thank you.
That is huge. Thank you. And thank you for having us today. It was really special to be with you.
Absolutely.
It's been, like I said, my honor, definitely. I have super enjoyed this. So everyone else, thank you so much for joining the Hive Summit today. And hopefully you guys connect throughout the Hive Summit, checking out the Hive calendar for some of the other events that are coming up. Hopefully you guys have taken an opportunity to look at our Kiva Fund, where we're trying to support the possibilities of people around the globe as a fundraiser. We have so much things going on. We have the teacher's table in the morning. So check these things out. Everybody, it has been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the Hive again. Take care.